Hello there. Good evening. You'd have thought with the coronavirus pandemic, 4 weeks of a lockdown and counting, and the postponement of football as we know it, we'd have run out of things to talk about by now. Well, think again. Titles, tentative decisions, and a takeover that could make Newcastle United one of the richest clubs in the world. It's all just another week of North East football, really, and only one place to catch up with it all. I'm Andy Sixsmith. This is Football Matters. All of this coming up on tonight's programme. 13 years of Mike Ashley, but Newcastle United reportedly now only days away from a takeover that would see them become the richest club in the Premier League. We'll have all the latest on this huge news with reaction and analysis from journalists and finance experts. The reaction keeps on coming from the FA's decision to cancel all football from steps 3 to 7. We'll hear from Morpeth Town chairman Ken Beattie on what that means for his club moving forwards. And a week after local rival Sunderland saw their season cancelled, we'll have a chat with Durham women captain Sarah Wilson about how the Wildcats are doing during lockdown, and if we could see a resumption of their championship season at any point. So, an absolutely packed show tonight, but before we get into it, just about time to introduce this week's revitalised punditry lineup, all primed and prepped to give their thoughts on the events of the last 7 days. No Mark Carruthers tonight, but stepping into his relatively smallish shoes, the man well known around these parts, the man who is taking time out, no less, from his son's birthday to be on the show this evening, Mr. Ross Gregory. Ross, how much in trouble are you with your son right now?
No, it's all good. He's a big fan of the show, so he's quite happy. He's 17 now, and he doesn't want me hanging around on his birthday. He's quite beyond that.
I can completely understand that. I can't understand him being a fan of the show, but we'll take whatever we can get on Football Matters, trust me. Joining Ross tonight, many would argue he's the face of Football Matters. Others would argue he's the reason we've lost many Sunderland supporting viewers. The man, the myth, former Newcastle United defender, Mr. Olivier Bernard. Ollie, how are we doing?
Very good, very good. I hope everyone's good as well.
Top man, all excellent, because last but certainly by no means least, parachuted into the programme to stand up for Sunderland if Ollie decides to go in on the Wearsiders again. Returning to the programme after several years away, we'll say. I'm delighted to welcome back Black Cats legend, Mr. Darren Williams. Darren, how are you going, my friend?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Obviously pleased to be back on the show. Didn't realise Ollie was having a go, but well, let's see what happens tonight.
Never does. Never.
Should have just assumed, mate, to be honest. He's been roaming free over the last couple of weeks, so hopefully you can keep the leash on him this evening, figuratively anyway, shall we say, because we're all separate, of course. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Quick reminder tonight, we are on all sorts of social media. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/Football Matters. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram. We're at Footy Matters TV. And give us a like on Facebook too while you're at it. You can watch this programme on YouTube or Facebook. And I'm sorry, Darren, I know you've only been back on Football Matters for a matter of minutes, but I've already got an apology for you, because there really is only one place we can start tonight, mate. I think you know where that might be.
Yeah, that's where I turn off now.
Please don't, because Newcastle fans have been waiting for this. It's been 4,716 days, or 673 weeks, or 154 months, shall we just say 13 years and counting, since Mike Ashley became the owner of Newcastle United. But the club is potentially now just days away from new ownership in one of the biggest developments to hit North East football. After so many false dawns, so much rumour, so much speculation, so many in-the-know Twitter accounts, news broke last week that documents were with Companies House and a £300 million deal had been agreed with the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, Amanda Staveley's PCP Capital Partners and the Reuben brothers to buy Newcastle United. Now, as it stands now, the deal's reportedly so far advanced that it's currently with the Premier League, who are undergoing their owners and directors test. What it does look like is that Newcastle United have never been close to new ownership, never been closer now. Sorry, Darren, close your ears here. Ollie is celebrating in the corner to being one of the richest clubs in world football. Now, we're going to come to you guys very, very shortly, because you've all got a lot to say on it, whether that be negative or positive. But first and foremost, because I appreciate they've been waiting for a little bit, I'd love to introduce two of our guests this evening. They are hopefully joining us right now, and they are Chris Waugh, who's Newcastle United writer for The Athletic, And delighted to welcome along to the programme as well, Kieran McGuire, University Lecturer on Football Finance and author of The Price of Football. Gents, thanks for coming on. Can you both hear me? Chris, Kieran?
Loud and clear.
Kieran's a go. Chris? It's a good start. Kieran, it looks like we're just with you, mate, to be honest with you. Let's see what we can do with Chris. We can't hear him. He is smiling, so he might be able to hear me at some point. He might have to unmute himself. Chris, can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There you are, mate. It's miraculous what an unmute button will do, isn't it? Gents, thank you very much for coming on the programme. I appreciate it. Is a very, very busy time, shall we say, right now, even though there's no football going on. Chris, let's come to you first. There has been whisperings of this deal being done since January. How far has this now progressed from the news breaking last week? And where do we stand now with this owners and directors test?
Well, I mean, there has been whispering since January, but actually this goes back far beyond that. I mean, Amanda Staveley was first interested more than 2 years ago now, but then this actual current interest stretches back the best part of the year, certainly 9 months. And I mean, but the current guys of the consortium who are looking to take over Newcastle, 10% of which would be Amanda Staveley, PCP Capital Partners, her company. 10% would be the Reuben brothers, who are billionaires and own property in Newcastle and also involved in Newcastle Racecourse. And then 80% would be the PIF, which is the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. This sort of consortium goes really back to just the last part of last year, and then in January it really started to formulate. We have progressed substantially since then. Mike Ashley has had an offer presented to him, round about 305 million. He's accepted it. All the paperwork's now been lodged to the Premier League, I believe, around April the 9th. And so at the moment, the owners and directors test is ongoing. They believe that can take anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks. They've been told it'll probably be 3 or 4. So you're looking probably end of April, early May before that's likely to be resolved. But it could be done at any time. And given the extraordinary circumstances we're in, who knows, that could be delayed as well.
And I'm sure the Newcastle United fans, after 13 years of patience, can wait a few days or even a few weeks. Kieran, let's bring you in on this. The owners and directors test at the Premier League. What do you know of this, and how stringent a process is it? And are they the sort of timeframes that we can be expecting with it?
There's 2 elements to the test. First of all, do you have any convictions which are unspent? So this shouldn't be an issue. 99.9% of people would pass that automatically. The second issue is the ability to prove that you have the financial strength to budget for the club and to meet its ongoing obligations in sort of the short to medium term. So this will be have you prepared some budgets and spreadsheets? Anybody can knock those out. That's not particularly difficult. But then it's sort of proof of funding. And here, clearly, if PIF are involved in the Reuben brothers, that it really should just be relatively easy to pass. And it's just a case of showing the bank accounts and the relevant details to evidence that the people involved do have the resources that they claim to possess.
And talking about the resources, I think the word is considerable resources that these 3 parties, but in particular the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, possess. I've seen one of the stats these last 7 days or so that the Public Investment Fund are worth more, 253 billion, I think it is, in terms of pounds, than all of the other 19 Premier League clubs put together. Just, if you can, Kieran, just put into context how eye-watering these figures are and where it puts Newcastle United in terms of global wealth for football.
Well, it would clearly put Newcastle United as having the richest owners, but there's having owners and there's having an ability to spend. One of the reasons why the financial fair play rules were introduced was to prevent another Abramovich, another Mansour, another Qatari investment fund coming in, and that's going to be the ceiling. That's going to be the problem that Newcastle United are going to have to deal with going forwards. I appreciate that Mike Ashley is not a popular person in Newcastle, but I mean, one of the good legacies from his involvement with the club is that because he has run it as a fairly tight ship, it means that there's an awful lot of wiggle room as far as being within the limits of financial fair play. You're allowed to lose £105 million over 3 years. Well, Ashley's been running Newcastle at a profit, so it's not like if you were coming in to take over Everton this year. They just posted losses of 100-odd million, and therefore you'd have to sell before you can buy. Newcastle can effectively put their foot down on the accelerator in terms of recruitment. I don't think it's going to be crazy. It's not going to be like the early days of Abramovich or Mansour, but certainly they have the capacity, if they so desire, to be very competitive compared to the rest of the non-Big Six clubs. And in due time, if that turns into an improved place in the table, once they're in Europe, they can progress further because they've got more money coming in from Europa League or Champions League.
It's interesting on the financial fair play. We will come back to that, but I just want to jump across to Chris because I appreciate you're a little bit more pushed for time, Chris. We know of these eye-watering numbers. We know of what they're worth, etc. But I was reading your article for The Athletic. I think you penned it a couple of weeks ago now, talking about the 10 things for the owners to do first. Narrow it down for us. What are the biggest and first 3 things that the prospective new owners should be doing at Newcastle United, do you think?
Well, the first thing for me in terms of, I mean, given the current situation, slightly different, but if you're looking at it from wider sort of context, the first thing that I think new owners need to do is there needs to come out with almost a mission statement. What do we intend to do? What is our vision for the club? I think part of the issue there's been with Mike Ashley and Newcastle fans is that Newcastle fans have never really been able to buy in to what Mike Ashley's been trying to do. He hasn't spoken necessarily often enough. There hasn't been enough clarity. So I certainly would urge new owners to come in and at least give an idea of this is what I want to do, because I also think that may help to temper some expectations which may have gone beyond with all this stuff about the potential billions that may be available. That needs to be tempered as well, I believe. I mean, in terms of given the current situation, the second thing I think they could do, which would just be an easy win as well, and I think a lot of people would accept, would be to really come in and unfurlough the staff, or certainly not apply for the government money alongside the furlough scheme, which I know that Liverpool have rolled back on that, Tottenham have rolled back on that, whereas Newcastle United, as things stand, are still applying for government funding for the staff that they've furloughed. So that really hasn't sat well with anyone. And then another sort of easy win, because given the situation when they come in, we don't know what's going to happen with the Premier League, but I don't think there's an immediate rush to change the manager. I don't think that needs to be done instantly. And obviously we don't know where the window is yet, so they can't make a material difference there. But what I think they can do is try and really reconnect with those legends of the club who have been sort of disenfranchised, Alan Shearer, Kevin Keegan, the like, and just really bring them back on, as whether it be ambassadorial roles, whatever it may be, and just really help reinvigorate the whole process, because it's going to be a strange sort of situation given the takeover is likely to be completed when there is no football.
And I suppose Amanda Staveley is going to play a huge part in that. So I remember when she was initially linked with Newcastle United, she's from around these parts as well. She talked about it being a special place. It's got its own identity. I think she said it was an absolutely unique city. How important is she going to be, do you think, in terms of driving those points forward, in terms of reconnecting the club with the fans once again, Chris, do you think?
I think she's going to be very important. I mean, I think she has been very important in this whole thing coming together. I know a lot of people have said, well, if Saudi Arabia, if the PIF have so much money, if the Reuben brothers have so much money, why haven't they come and bought this club themselves? And I think she's very much been a large part of the driving force behind this. I don't think the Reuben brothers, of their own account, would have gone and tried to buy a football club. The PIF, I'm not exactly sure as well, but potentially same sort of thing. So she did her due diligence in 2017 or whatever it was. She came, she spoke to the Falcons, the local rugby club. She spoke to the council. She worked out what can we do in this city? How can we really make Newcastle again the hub of the city? How can we connect people? So I think she is going to be very important in terms of the day-to-day running, or certainly the shaping that image going forward. She's tried to really integrate herself into what it is to be a Newcastle fan. What do they really want? What do they expect going forward? So I think shaping that vision and helping direct it going forward, she will be crucial to that.
So, Kieran, coming back to you in terms of this investment, and whether it be from Amanda Staveley, Reuben Brothers or PIF, how much investment do you think there's going to be in Newcastle as a city rather than just a club? You mentioned Manchester City before, and Sheikh Mansour, and the amount of money that's gone into the infrastructure of Manchester City as a club, but also Manchester as a city. Do you see the same happening here with the PIF?
I think a lot would depend upon the nature of the relationship and what PRF are trying to get out of it. There's no doubt that I've lived in Manchester for 40 years, and it has changed the face of East Manchester. I think there was a challenge that Mansour had, in that Manchester City had to find part of a new fan base because they've been living in the shadows of United for so long. Now, clearly, everybody in Newcastle is in black and white to begin with. So therefore, that particular issue is less of a concern. And I think they can therefore pick up in terms of building the academy and the youth team and things of that nature, which again, UAA have been very successful at in Manchester, that they now are the go-to club in the city rather than United. So those issues won't be so much of a challenge for PIF. I think they would like to deal with the accusations of sports washing. And the way that they can do that is by buying into the community as far as Newcastle is concerned. And I agree totally with Chris. The first thing you do is you ditch the furlough scheme. You say, yeah, we are the owners. We are Newcastle United. We're not sucking on the teat of central government taxation. And you go from there.
Interestingly, that you talk about the sports washing, Chris, I feel like we have to mention it because it's something that's been levelled at Newcastle fans, I've noticed in the last 48 hours or so. People talking about the human rights record of the PIF, of Saudi Arabia in general, and the royal family over there. How fair is it, though, that the Newcastle fans, relieved, they're hopeful of this new dawn, have been in some quarters questioned, they've been condemned for going behind the Saudi Arabians, even though they're going to be buying into the club, when it comes down to these prospective new owners? It's not down to them, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for all Newcastle fans, but I think it's almost, I think there's been a sort of nationally in some ways a lost narrative to a degree. I think there's for a lot of Newcastle fans, there is almost a sense to begin with, certainly, of anyone but Mike Ashley. So I think a large part of the euphoria is not necessarily who's coming in, although there has been excitement about that. I think it is, right, we've had 13 years of Mike Ashley. The vast majority of fans want him to go, didn't see the end of this, takeovers over the last couple of years, as they've called them, and it seems it's finally the end of him. So there is that excitement. I think that's been underplayed slightly. But in terms of the potential Saudi involvement, look, if you ask the vast majority of Newcastle United fans, would you prefer there not to be any Saudi involvement? I'm sure the majority of them would say, no, we wouldn't. But at the same time, it isn't up to Newcastle United fans that Saudi Arabia are dealt with by government or dealt with in a lot of sort of way. There is this relationship there. And that's why I would be shocked if the Premier League did reject this, because I think you'd have a sort of diplomatic incident almost because of that. Because at the end of the day, if they do pass the owners and directors test in a lot of other ways, then I can't see how you could stop that. So, yes, I think a lot of Newcastle fans themselves are having sort of this almost moral dilemma of, do I really want Saudi ownership given the accusations of sport washing, given all the accusations we know about what allegedly the country has done? But at the end of the day, it isn't up to them, and they want to be excited about their football club again. I think that to them is more what they're thinking about. I don't think that it's up to Newcastle fans to be the ones who should be the sort of moral compass on this one. Really, they just want to really love their club again.
And we talk about a couple of key decisions. Just a couple of quick final ones for you, Chris, because like I said, I appreciate you've got to go and you're giving us your time this evening. A lot of talk today about Steve Bruce and his future. The belief is that Steve is going to be given the rest of the season as and when, if the Premier League season can be resumed. And then maybe the new owners will want to bring a new manager. What's your take on that? And what's your take on the name, of course, Rafa Benitez being bandied around Tyneside?
I mean, obviously, there are the Rafa Benitez, Amanda Staveley links from when she had the initial bid, that all three bids then were basically dependent on Rafa Benitez remaining as manager. But a lot has changed since then. Benitez has subsequently left. He is in a £12 million a year contract in China, which my understanding is would cost around $20 million to extricate him from it. So at the moment, Rafa Benitez, at least in the short term, is not available. So do I believe that the new owners admire Rafa Benitez? Yes, certainly they do. But in terms of Steve Bruce's position, I mentioned it before, this is not, I don't think that a change of manager is necessarily something you need to do imminently, unless they have identified someone who I don't know about who is available elsewhere. I think you come in, there is a period of pause where likely the Premier League is going to resume at some stage. Yeah. Steve Bruce has navigated the first 29 games of the season. He's done a pretty good job given the circumstances. So I think that the likelihood is they'll come in and assess things and then decide in time. Look, there are going to be serious question marks about Steve Bruce. Any new owners, in all likelihood, Mike Ashley had the same way. He inherited Sam Allardyce and within 6 months he'd fired him. I think that everyone expects that at some stage the new owners are likely to want to bring in their own head coach or manager, whatever it may be. But I don't think that in the short term that's something they're likely to do. Because, of course, with a new coach, of course, brings a new belief in terms of how the team is structured, the personnel on the team. As soon as this news broke, it was very much a case amongst Newcastle United fans.
oh, who can we get? Mbappe, Neymar, etc. I've seen all sorts of teams being bandied around on social media in the past 7 days. But what sort of player do you see finally, Chris, being brought into Newcastle United and helping them out from a playing perspective? Because it's not going to be a situation like Manchester City, is it, where they go out and splash a load of money on Robinho? It should be a lot more methodical than that, do you think?
I think so. I mean, part of the issue, I'll caveat with whatever my answer is going to be, is we don't yet know what state the market is going to be in and when the transfer window is going to open. So in theory, Newcastle should be in a positive position compared to some others, because I know that money has been set aside for both infrastructure changes and also to improve the squad. I think that the likelihood is it will be more organic than something at Man City. I think that they will probably look to make one or two sort of big name signings, really bolster. I think what they really need to do is focus on, rather than bringing a host of players, is focus on bringing a couple of players who are really going to improve the first team, that haven't sorted out the striker situation in so long. And we all know about Newcastle United and the need for a proper number 9. So I think focusing on that, focusing on one or two players, is the likelihood of what they're going to do. They already have the nucleus of a decent enough squad, and I think that organic growth is more likely, certainly given the fact that we just don't know at the moment what the situation is. But that may, in some ways, allow Newcastle to, for want of a better term, capitalise, because I don't want to seem as if Newcastle are going to be acting in a sort of negative way. But given the situation that may be, some clubs may need money this summer, and that may allow Newcastle to pick up some players slightly that maybe you wouldn't have thought that they would have been able to for a reasonable price in previous windows.
Well, we'll await your team that Newcastle should have in the next couple of weeks, or whenever this is out. Chris, I know you've got to leave us. We're going to go over to Kieran. I'll let you head off. Thank you very, very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. And,
no problem. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Next week or so.
Cheers, guys.
That's Chris, Newcastle United writer for The Athletic. Kieran, let's just round things off with you, because I appreciate you being patient there while we had to let Chris go. We've talked the level of investment here. How does this situation Newcastle will be in compare to the likes? I know we've mentioned Manchester City, but what about Real Madrid, Bayern? Entirely different model, I presume. But in terms of the absolute wealth that will be available to Newcastle, in a different sort of level, maybe.
Very much so. I think we've also got to temper things slightly, in that if you take a look at clubs such as Real and Bayern, those are global brands. Yeah. They have fan bases all around the world. Newcastle is a fantastic city club, and to break beyond that will be quite a challenge. And if they do not succeed in Europe, then simply they won't get the same degree of fan base, they won't get the same degree of commercial partners, unless, of course, they end up signing deals with the likes of Aramco and other major Saudi organisations. But that will itself bring the type of accusations which have been levelled at Manchester City and PSG. So I think they need to be very cautious, but there's certainly the scope for Newcastle to break into the Big Six, because what we are seeing at present is that Arsenal and Spurs are both struggling in terms of their business strategy, in terms of player recruitment, and therefore we've seen Leicester and Sheffield United and Wolves effectively move in to be competing clubs. Now, if Newcastle get their recruitment correct, and also perhaps they move towards more of a data scientific approach, the three leading clubs in the Premier League at present, Manchester City, Leicester and Liverpool, they've got the three best data scientific teams working for them. I think Newcastle have to spend money smart. It certainly, as Chris said, it's a buyer's market, the transfer market this summer, whenever it opens, and that can only count in their favour.
It certainly will. And just very, very finally, Kieran, I hate to round things off on a necessarily negative note for Newcastle fans, who I'm sure will be keeping the cans chilled in the fridge. But looking at where it stands now, is there any way still, I'm sure there is, which this deal can still collapse?
Well, yeah, there's two things that could happen. The owners and directors test could be failed. I think that's highly unlikely. Or as part of the final due diligence, Amanda Staveley's teams of forensic accountants and lawyers discover something that they're not particularly happy with. We know that there are outstanding issues in terms of tax, legacy issues. In terms of Newcastle United, they might ask for indemnification in respect of those. Mike Ashley might refuse to give them. So it could collapse in that regard. I think the one thing which really sets this particular deal apart from where we've been in the past is the fact that St James's Holdings lodged a vendor sale arrangement, effectively giving Amanda Staveley her 10% of the cost. I don't think she's not got the cash herself. Her money is tied up in other assets and legal claims. And the fact that Ashley himself is encouraging her to buy the club has got to be the biggest positive.
How surprised would you be if this wasn't to go through, though, now? Are you relatively confident that this is a deal, like Chris said, in terms of timeframes, we're likely to see an announcement on the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think we're in the 90-10 position now. So, yeah, far more positive than we've ever been before.
Well, you've just become a new favourite with Newcastle United fans, Kieran, and you've definitely gone off Darren Williams' Christmas card list 2020 as well. But we really appreciate your time. I don't know if any of the boys want to jump in with Kieran and just ask a question. Ollie hasn't sat down, I don't think, for 7 days. So I don't know if anyone has a question for Kieran before we let him go.
No, not this one. It was pretty clear and very exciting. So
I thought you would be. All right. Well, Kieran, thank you very, very much for your time today, mate. Really appreciate it. And most importantly, stay safe, obviously, during this difficult time. And hopefully we'll be able to get through it. And for Newcastle fans everywhere, they're keeping the fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Hope it goes through for everyone.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Really appreciate your time. Take care.
Bye now.
That's Kieran McGuire, University lecturer on football finance and, of course, the author of The Price of Football as well. I think there's only one place to start here. Darren, I can see the look on your face, and I'm going to come to you next, I promise, that you've had to listen to 20 minutes of Newcastle United. This return to football matters isn't going well for you, is it, at all at the minute? Ollie, you must be cock-a-hoop about this, surely. I mean, yes, there's the human rights record, which we'll come on to, but in terms of the wealth and the potential that Newcastle have talked about for years, this is the key, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about somebody, big to take the club forward, thinking that you would be the richest club in the world, make you think that you could do wonders. I'm still not convinced we're gonna win the Premier League in the next 3 years because of the fair play. But I believe that everything, from now on would be totally different. There's going to be a lot of changes, whether they're good or not, we don't know. But there's adjustment to be made first before you go full force. So I'm excited because something's going to happen. But I'm afraid. I still think it's going to take a bit of time before we see silverware.
Yeah, I'm sure the Newcastle fans will be very, very patient after all the problems in recent years. Darren, from a Sunderland and from a North East wider perspective, I know the immediate...
He's not happy.
I can see that. What's your... When you heard about this news from a Sunderland fan as well, how did you react to it?
I mean, obviously we've been in positions before where we've heard about, takeovers at Newcastle, and obviously things have fell through. I mean, for me, obviously Sunderland through and through, and I think the only reason this deal will fall through is kind of when they realise obviously Sunderland's a bigger club.
That's why we've got you back on, mate. That's why we've got you back on.
So we guaranteed it's sold.
Get heated, this.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, obviously there is a rivalry, there is that, but I mean, it's fantastic to see that people are interested in clubs up in the northeast. To be quite honest, yeah. Generally, guys with this stature and this amount of money, would generally look at the capital, for in your big teams in London, to take over, but. It can only benefit. I think everybody really, in a sense. Eyes have gone on to Newcastle. Who knows what? Somebody might then become interested in Sunderland. You just don't know. It can be a catalogue of things that helps other teams along the way.
Do you feel like it's a really interesting point you make there, and kind of like the domino effect, I suppose, of this deal on Sunderland, on Middlesbrough, on Hartlepool, Gateshead, etc. Do you think this is going to have a positive knock-on effect of more players? Because of the injection of cash and wealth, wanting to come to the North East, and then this could just filter down the leagues. Is that a bit fanciful, or is that a possibility?
No, I think it's a possibility. I think, the more and more, investments that, clubs get in, especially up in the North East, it can only benefit the area itself. And for me, I think then the focal point might become the North East. You just don't know. I'm not saying it isn't. It's going to happen, but potentially it could. And Newcastle, it's a big club. Sunderland's a big club. We know that from the passion and support that that both teams get. And like I say, this could then, somebody then could just, take a look at Sunderland and think, there's development here. From my point of view, obviously, Sunderland is in a situation, of League One, as a guy or a wealthy company who has this type of money, they could look at that as thinking, well, the only thing we can do is increase, increase the profits of the club and increase the club itself, and it's Sunderland is a sleeping giant, and unfortunately, and it does need something to take, Sunderland forward, as everybody's, said for the past couple of years.
Ross, just quickly move on to you. You've been very, very quiet, which is lovely, to be honest with you. But you've taken all that in from Chris and from Kieran. What really stood out for you? Because obviously, naturally, you've been all over this story. What stood out for you from what the pair of them were saying about this deal?
I think for me there's kind of two or three strands. There's one, let's get the deal over the line, let's get the takeover over the line, and there is still a couple of little ifs and buts. And the guys have all said, we've been here before with Newcastle United. We've been here on numerous occasions, never quite this close, and that is exciting. But having spoken to a number of Newcastle fans over the last week, there is still a degree of cautiousness around the deal, thinking there is still so many things that could potentially go wrong, and you speak to fans and they're excited, but they're just trying to rein it in slightly. But what they are hopefully getting is a reconnect with their club. They are excited, or potentially excited, about their club again. They are potentially excited about what the future may hold, about going back to St James's. Let's not forget that the club had to give away 10,000 season tickets not long ago, because so many people had fallen out of love with Newcastle under the Mike Ashley regime. And yes, there's so many issues around this deal, with the sports washing, with the ethical side of things, which do need addressed. They can't be ignored. They absolutely do need to be addressed, not necessarily by Newcastle fans, but by the PIF and by government legislation, perhaps, and Premier League legislation, and that these issues can't be just swept under the carpet. But Newcastle fans deserve to feel excited and hopeful for the future, and with a fair wind and with fingers crossed, this will help them reconnect with their club again.
It's a huge opportunity, huge potential. Ollie, I have to give the final word on this, because we can't talk about Newcastle all programme. I'm sorry about that, mate, but we will have to move on to other clubs. What do you think, moving forward? I know you've talked about the short term, and you can't see Newcastle challenging for the Premier League in the next 3 or 4 years even, but could you see a situation develop where Newcastle United, say in 5 to 10 years, are regarded like Manchester City have been, from mid-table obscurity through to the top one of the Premier League and into European Champions League? Can you see Newcastle United following a similar path to that or not?
When you look at Newcastle United, I'm thinking the same path that Manchester City got onto. It's buying the league, basically. Getting 4 to 6 players a year until you win it. Now with the fair play, it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen in 5 years. But in 10 years, you'll have Newcastle. In the next 10 years, with that amount of money, if they invest that money, I think you will see the club winning silverware, whether it's a cup or the league. The league, obviously, it's difficult because you've got to build an ethos and everything to go with it. But to win a cup, I'll see that winning in the next 10 years would be fantastic for the club, but more acceptable, I think.
Could you see, realistically, I know you just kind of said it there, but could you see Newcastle, if at least challenging for the league inside a decade's time?
I think they will be in the next, if we are counting on the club spending, 100, 150 a year, millions, then you'll be looking at maybe challenging in the next 3 years, 2-3 years, depending on how youth academy is developing. It might go quicker, but if you look at just first team without any home ground players, then you're looking at probably 3 years with 100, 150 million a year.
It's an exciting time, certainly for Newcastle.
Very, very, very.
We will. I don't believe that was fully meant, but
No, I feel sorry for them. Don't get me wrong. I do.
Thankfully for Darren, we are going to move on to Sunderland now. Move away from Newcastle. More news on the takeover, obviously, as and when we get it. So do keep an eye on our social media accounts and keep those cans chilled for now if you are Newcastle fans. But let's look at Sunderland, Darren. Let's come on to you with this one. Like so many other clubs in the current climate, waiting on this date now that the league can be resumed. Where do you personally stand on the leagues resuming, given the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown? How should it play out, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, really, because, we look at, obviously, it's a serious situation that we're in, in and around, the whole country, well, the world in effect, really. And then, you've got to put it in context of, like, it's a sport. Do you know what I mean? We all love our football. It's fantastic. The idea about playing behind closed doors, for me, it's very difficult as a player to get yourself motivated to go and play a game behind closed doors.
Yeah.
As daft as it sounds, it is. It's very difficult. As much as obviously you're playing for your club, as much as obviously you're paying, you're getting paid for playing. It's very difficult to motivate yourself. It's like playing a friendly, week in, week out. So it's a difficult one to really say. I mean, if that's the idea and that's how they're going to continue the season, then I can see seasons just filtering out in a sense for a lot of teams, for a lot of players. So it's a difficult one on what's the best way to go. Obviously, we don't want the crowds being together because of obviously the situation we're in, because that's only going to then blow things back up again. We want to try and settle this as much as possible, but you can only wait a certain length of time before we either make a decision on whether to complete the season or whether not to complete the season, and that's got to be kind of knocking on the door, because in effect, really, seasons are just going to run into each other at this rate.
Yeah. It's such a. I mean, we've covered it on the show the last few weeks, obviously. And such a difficult situation. It's a difficult decision for anyone to come up with in terms of how to finish off the season. So we'll kind of leave that one there. But in terms of Sunderland as a club right now, we've talked at length, obviously, in the last fortnight about Sunderland till I die, about the general state of the club. What's your view on it right now? Have you seen the documentary? Has that changed your opinion any on what Sunderland is as a club at the minute?
Yeah. I've binge watched them because obviously I've had nothing else to do. so yeah, I mean, I've watched it, and obviously, everyone's got opinions on Stuart Donaldson and how he is, and is he the right person, etc. I think he is the right person. I think he's got the right idea about the club. Like we were talking about there, saying about Newcastle fans now trying to reconnect with the club. That's what Sunderland needed, and that's what Stuart Donaldson did. Along with Charlie. For me, we've got that connection now with the fans again. Maybe it's just not as passionate as, maybe it's not as driven as it was years ago. Obviously I can only speak from my experience of being at the club. When I was there, we were kind of as a one. It wasn't the fans there, the players there, the manager there. We were all as one, and I think that's it's got back to that now. For me, the point of view, I think Stuart Donaldson, he is passionate. He does want to do well for the club. He does want to do well for Sunderland. Financially, can he do that? I don't know. I don't, and I think that's where he's at loggerheads now, is how far can he take the club? On his current finances. Yes, it's been public knowledge that we've tried to get investment in, we've tried to get things in, and unfortunately it hasn't worked. Which is what I'm saying is, yes, Sunderland fans would be, be thinking, oh, great, Newcastle getting taken over, obviously they'd be down in the dumps. But what I'm saying is this could put a completely different light on it. The Sunderland now people could be interested in Sunderland and moving Sunderland forward, because, like I said, there's more scope with Sunderland at being at the level they are. Obviously, Newcastle in the Premier League, so yes, there still is scope to get into the Champions League or Europe, etc. Which with that type of money you can do over several years. However, Sunderland, you can see now the potential there, and I think with this programme as well, I think a lot of people will look at that and think, a little bit differently about Stuart Donaldson now, because I think he was taking a lot of flack for a while, and you watch those deadline days, and he's anxious, he's desperate to get it, and he's pushing the boundaries to try and get deals over the line. Yeah. And for me, I think clubs took a lot, they took a mick really out of him in that sense, because they were pushing the boundaries and pushing the money up. Yeah. You're paying extra for players that realistically, are being priced at a certain amount, and then you're paying probably double, treble that. Just because they know we need that certain player, and we're desperate to get that. And for me, I felt a little bit sorry for him, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just felt a little, because he was desperate to get people in and do the job right. And unfortunately, people were just putting the money up, and he ended up having to push the ball out a little bit further than what he probably would have wanted to.
And just on that point, actually, Ross, you cover so much Northeast football. What's your opinion on that and this potential takeover of Newcastle? How could it affect, like Darren's mentioned, the likes of Sunderland, Middlesbrough, even Gateshead, etc.? What is this knock-on effect, do you think, that if there even is one?
I think there will be. I think what it does is it showcases the Northeast, hopefully in a positive light, if the takeover gets completed and Newcastle progress like we think they may. Big crowds, passionate support, passionate fan base, vibrant city as well, and that putting that on a higher profile. Again, it'll just attract more interest to the Northeast. And like Darren says, there could be a knock-on effect for somebody like Sunderland. We all know that Stuart Donald's looking for either investment or for a somebody to come in and take over the club. And with the profile that Sunderland have already got a high-profile club. Don't get me wrong; they don't need Newcastle United They don't need to live in Newcastle United's shadow. They don't need to pick up any crumbs from the plate of Newcastle United. They're a big club in their own right, and with a high profile that they have from the Netflix series and everything else that's gone around them. But this can't do any harm to Sunderland from a financial perspective, even if it's just some reinvestment in the Northeast, which can wash down into Sunderland as a city. Never mind the football club. It could be benefits for that. And then, as we've seen previously, with more players coming into Newcastle, potentially that could free up opportunities for some younger players to go out on loan to your likes of your Gatesheads or your Hartlepool or other clubs of that kind of standing, which can only benefit them as well, getting experience into these kids who might not have a natural pathway into the first team as well. So I think there's numerous positives that we can hopefully see from the Newcastle takeover for the rest of the region.
And your
that was going to be my next question is, do you see the two clubs, let's say Newcastle and Sunderland, working in a partnership? I mean, Newcastle are in the Premier League. Is it possible, that's me being not a Northeast born lad, asking the question, is it possible that two clubs could work it out and, loan players out to each other? Well, more Newcastle now by the looks of it, to loan players to Sunderland and make them grow. Maybe in a sense, you can play for Sunderland and still live in Newcastle, and that's one of the big attributes I would probably be telling a player.
What would you say, Darren?
Yeah, once upon a time, I think they might have. I think there may be. I think the situation's changed quite a bit now. I'm not sure that if you're a Sunderland fan, would you be happy one of Newcastle United's lesser lights, cast-offs, whatever you want to call young players coming into your club, would you then? How would that sit? Is a profile? Is a
yeah, but there's a bigger picture, isn't it? You know, you want the club back in the Premier League, so that's why I'm asking.
I tell you what, why don't we ask a Sunderland fan, Darren? How would you feel about a Newcastle player being loaned to Sunderland? How would you feel about him if they had an impact on your League One or Championship season?
That's how good he was. No, I mean, I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get where Olly's coming from there, and potentially, yeah, listen, we all love the rivalry, we all love the banter. At the end of the day, but I think if it's in the best interest of either club, then why not? If a player's got great potential and he's for a fact he could go into League One and make a difference, for you personally, then why not? I mean, we've got to put all this stupidity behind us, and yeah, we'll have the banter, and we'll torture each other and we'll take the mick out of each other. But at the end of the day, if someone is going to do a fantastic job for you, then so be it. Let's get that player on the pitch, and let's see what he can do. Obviously, if he doesn't, we'll get him straight back off and send him back over.
Let's get back over the river.
Fair enough.
Just one final one on Sunderland, because it's this. Ollie will like me mentioning this, but it's this comment that's been made over the last couple of weeks about Sunderland, whether they're still a big club or not. 30,000 fans still at the Stadium of Light when all's said and done. Sunderland, are, like you've said rightly, Darren, this sleeping giant almost of an organisation. You've talked about the unity. What else is it going to take for Sunderland to really kind of waken up, if you want to use the sleeping giant metaphor, and climb the leagues once again and become a big club once again in the Championship or Premier League, do you think?
Money?
Oh, money.
Yeah, I think you've got to have some more funds, haven't you, to take it forward. We've seen how it's the guys have struggled to get people across the line on deadline day and stuff, and and that's not because they can't do the deal. It's just the fact that they don't want to be paying over the odds. But as we see in the documentary, we ended up having to pay over the odds on certain occasions for players. Yeah. So from my point of view, it's investment. It's starting to get away from that negativity, from behind the scenes. For me, a lot of that negativity rubs off, and it filters into the fans, it filters onto the pitch. So it needs a bit more positivity from the background. Stuart Donaldson came in at the start with Charlie Meave, and they did great. Everything was all positive, and then we start to get the little negatives in there again. Yeah. Then obviously you've got fans questioning themselves, and then that's then reflected maybe as if the team don't really particularly perform on a Saturday or during the midweek. That's then reflecting on the players, and then the players are taking it. So we've got to get away from all this negativity. Yeah, we need investment. We know that, but that doesn't buy instant success. Sure. We've got to be more to it. The fans are starting to come back in, and then all of a sudden there's now another negative thing in the background. Does Stuart Donaldson want to sell out? Yeah, well, he's made that publicly clear that he does want a kind of investment. Does he want to totally sell out? I don't think he does, but I think he does need some help. And he just, I don't mean guidance, because the guy's obviously done extremely well, with his finances and how he is. But I think you just need something alongside him just to say, yeah, we can go and push the boundaries a little bit. We can take this club forward. And it's a progression stage. We've got to get out of League One. That's a massive thing. Obviously, this has come out. This virus has come out at such a bad time, because I feel that Sunderland was starting to produce a little bit better on the pitch, and it's starting to get a little bit more solid. However, obviously, this is stalled the season. So, will this have a knock-on effect with us? Yeah. Potentially, yeah.
We'll leave Sunderland there and just head down the leagues very quickly, because I appreciate we've got Ken Beattie, Morpeth Town's chairman, waiting in the wings. Ross, just one quick one with you. Any more update on the National League's decisions? Obviously, that it's been given now to the clubs in terms of the vote. How is that going in terms of the resumption of their leagues?
I think they've still got a deadline of it might be May the 7th before they have to make a decision. There's a real kind of period of time before they actually make a decision. So in terms of where we were from last week, we're not massively further forward. Obviously the conversations and the dialogues will continue, and everybody's having their say, but there's still a little bit of breathing space that they've got before they need to make a decision. They're certainly not going to jump into making a quick decision like they did with the steps 3 to 7, which I know we'll come on to very soon. But they're certainly not looking to do anything that is quickly and as knee-jerk as what was done with those leagues. So the conversations are continuing, the dialogue's continuing. I know a lot of clubs want decisions made fairly quickly because they do still have financial obligations and issues surrounding them. But I think, I may be wrong, and somebody may be able to correct me, but I think May the 7th is still the date before the decisions are made.
Well, we'll still await that one. Like you rightly say, obviously one decision that has been made was the decision to cancel the leagues from steps 3 to 7. We heard from South Shield's chairman last week, Jeff Thompson. They're appealing this decision. They're taking legal action potentially. And now in the same division, Morpeth have had their say on the matter. And I'm absolutely delighted, all being well, to welcome back onto the programme after a few years away. Delighted to welcome back the chairman of Morpeth Town as he gets to his audio, Mr. Ken Beattie, who was very patient. Ken, thank you so much.
I was nearly asleep, Andy. Nearly asleep there.
It's okay, mate. So was I. I had to listen to Ollie Bernard for 40 minutes. So there was that to take into consideration. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being patient with us. Obviously, the Newcastle news is taking up quite a fair chunk of this.
Of course.
But we need to talk about Morpeth. We need to talk, obviously, about steps 3 to 7 as well. First and foremost, how's lockdown treating you? Are you going stir-fry crazy yet or not?
No, I was, taking advantage of the time at home, doing a lot of paperwork relative to the business we have, and also for Morpeth. So it's good from that aspect, but obviously very worrying. What's going on.
Yeah, how is this situation affecting Morpeth in the short term?
Yeah. It's the club shut down like everyone else. I go up the clubhouse most days to check everything's okay. It's just a mile from my house.
Yeah.
But everyone's still working very hard behind the scenes. We've got things planned. We had things planned for the summer, but of course, I think they will be delayed now for a 3G pitch and to develop the youngsters into an academy we're having. So it's there's plenty of things going on in the background, but it's slightly on hold right now.
Is there any revitalised time frame on the likes of a pitch and stand, etc., or is it very much a case of a fluid situation as this coronavirus developed?
I think it's fluid. The council don't want us to start any work right now, so really we've got to be guided by them. As far as any building work, we can't get on. And saying that, with the pitch has passed the inspection, we're now the level grading we want to be.
Yeah. So
everything's fine as far as that's concerned, but there are more developments I want to do to make it more of an enjoyable day at a match experience, Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk the big decision, obviously, at that level, and that is the FA decision to not just initially make that decision, but then ratify it just last week and cancel steps 3 to 7. Let's get your take on it, because you released a statement last week saying that you agreed with the FA decision. Why is that, Ken, from Morpeth Town's perspective, that you agree with the decision to cancel?
Well, obviously, it was a very, very difficult decision for the FA, but I think they had to be decisive. And once our league committee had made the recommendation to expunge, they acted very quickly, and they had to act quickly. And I think at the time of shutdown, I think there was 10 deaths, and I think the decision's been proven right.
Yeah.
The options of points per game and delay, I think points per game would have been unfair to everyone, including the top and the bottom, because, for instance, Morpeth Town could have finished just behind FC United in Manchester by 0.1 of a point and gained promotion, or gained certainly a playoff, having played 6 games less than, say, Warrington or Nantwich.
Yeah.
So I think that would be unfair if we were to get that position, having played less games. But that's the way points per game, I think, works. Really unfair to the people in the relegation zone. For instance, Atherton, Colbury's and Grantham. Yeah. I think Atherton would have overtaken Grantham despite having less points. So examples like that are unfair, and you've got to be fair to everyone.
And it's a very, very difficult situation, to be fair with everyone, I suppose, because obviously some clubs like yourself agree with the decision, other clubs don't necessarily agree with the decision. Can you see where the likes of Southfield's obviously clear at the top of the division and Jeff are are coming from with regards to their standpoint?
I certainly can. I know they'd be very disappointed. Associates have put a big effort into to gain promotion, and I can understand the great disappointment.
Yeah,
it's just one of these decisions that's difficult, and we all have to accept difficult decisions sometimes in life, and accept disappointment. We've all had that. So it's a case of taking the only option available as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And delay would have been no good either. I don't think, because clubs don't have the money. Contracts were the main issue here.
Yeah.
Contracts running out at the end of April, beginning of May, and I think just the fact clubs don't have the money, and they needed a decision.
Yeah, and I think one of the points that kept cropping up was the integrity of the league as well, in terms of making that decision, and maybe the integrity being questioned of the lower leagues by the fact that the decision was made so early on rather than waiting. What's your kind of reaction to that, Ken?
No, I think the decision was made correctly. I think it's been proven that was the correct decision. I think as far as the question of the National League having a different view on it, I think it's slightly different. Although we're in the same pyramid system, the National League tend to be professional. Most teams, I believe, in the National League are professional, where the leagues 3 and 4 are part-time, if you like, semi-professional. And it's slightly different. In Scotland, for instance, the Championship League, the Championship League have been expunged, whereas the Premier of Scotland, they keep going it because of the money that's available in the Premier. Yeah. It's a slightly different situation, and I think overall it was the right one to take.
Yeah. How frustrating is it? Because obviously a lot of people talk about the top of the league. They don't necessarily look several places down. Morpeth had plenty of games in hand, a huge chance of a playoff run at the very, very least. It must be quite frustrating if it's all happened just as Morpeth was starting to move through the gears, I suppose.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we were on the form team. The last 10 games we had won 8 and drawn 2. Yeah. We were 5 points away from pulling into the playoff position. Yeah. We could have caught the leaders had we beaten them. We had to play them. And we were confident we could do well. We won the final of the Northumberland Senior Cup, St James's, quarter-final of the League Cup. Great disappointments, which it is frustrating, but life and death is more important, and that's the decision, and we accept it.
Of course, and as well as life and death, of course, is the future of Morpeth as well, which is much more important. How do you safeguard the club financially, and how confident are you that Morpeth can get through this difficult period and come out of it on the other side?
Well, we've made provision. We have funds which the sponsors have given us, yeah. And we're looking after that money. We have made a big play in the previous 9 months to have facilities. It's unfortunate we had weddings planned for our new marquee, which it's cost us a fair bit of money to invest in that, but it's worth it because of the events we had planned, and we had various things like Party in the Park, where we did well last year, with 4,000 people for an event with 35 bands coming. But these are things we have to do to go forward. Football clubs have to look beyond just playing football, and that's something we're looking forward to. Obviously, it's all on hold at the moment, but unlike a lot of clubs are lucky in as much that we have funds, and we're going to look after that cash and maintain where we are. But the future for us is youngsters, bringing the academy on, getting youngsters into the first team, and that's what we're planning.
That's good to hear. Guys, do you want to jump at any questions for Ken while he's on?
Yeah, Ken, it's Ross here. How are you doing?
Hello, Ross.
Ken, obviously you've talked there about Morpeth hopefully being financially secure and healthy moving forward. Do you see this having an effect on other clubs, maybe above you or in and around you, around the pyramid? We talked last week about maybe there's a couple of clubs unfortunately going under because of this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of clubs struggling, Ross. They rely week to week on revenue from the clubhouse, from functions. And it's terrible situation. I think there could be some casualties. I think there still could be a chance for clubs to go up from this league or other leagues in the alliance, because I believe teams above could be struggling. Similarly, teams in our league could be struggling. And I think it's the lucky ones who possibly got some reserves who can survive. So it's a very difficult situation.
Huge.
And just on the league being the decision to kind of expunge all the results, did you as a club have any consultation with the league management committee? I mean, one of the things that Jeff Thompson was unhappy was kind of a lack of communication and consultation. He felt. Is that how you see it, or were you quite happy for the leagues to make them kind of decisions on your behalf?
Well, the rules state that league management will make the decisions, and the rules state, that expulsion can take place on clubs who don't finish the season. So we knew what the rules were. There was no mention of points per game. But no, there wasn't any consultation. We had our own meetings internally. I did speak to other clubs, and we came to the view that, look, we'll have to accept what the league management committee say and what the alliance say, So no, I've got to say there's no talking to the top management committee at all.
And just one last one for me, Ken. Just I'm really interested about Morpeth, because obviously your progression has been fantastic over the last few years. In the way that you've developed the club. What's your long-term ambition for Morpeth? Where do you see the club potentially going? Is it much higher in the pyramid?
I think we can with the right push and the right marketing and the right commitment from people, I think we're going to achieve the conference. I don't think we'll ever be a league club, but certainly we're going to achieve conference level with the right strategy, shall we say, Ross? And that is the aim, to get to the conference. Brilliant. Of course, we've got a big hurdle to get to the next league above us, which is a very tough league. Yeah. But with what we're planning for an academy and the plan to make money outside of football, we can achieve it.
It's obviously very, very difficult to hear about the present news from a lot of clubs up and down the country, but fantastic to hear such a bright future plan for Morpeth, Ken. And obviously all of us here at Football Matters wish you the very best in the short term and getting through this difficult period. But thank you for now for coming on. We really, really appreciate your time. And again, thanks for being so patient with us.
No problem. Thank you.
Nice one. Take care of yourself, Ken, and the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same to you. Thank you.
That's Beattie, of course, Ken of Morpeth Town. We're starting to run out of finish. And we go now from the lower leagues to the second game. Oh, we're going to have to maybe just get Ken out of there. He's left the microphone along the line. It was always going to happen, wasn't it? It was always going to happen. We'll head from the men's lower leagues down to the women's game now. Durham women, third in the women's championship. There were 6 points off the leaders Aston Villa and beating Aston Villa when the season was brought, of course, to a shuddering halt due to the coronavirus. It brought a pause to another progressive season, you would have said, for Durham, who were hopeful the league will resume. And earlier on today, I caught up with Durham's captain, Sarah Wilson. Wills, great to see you again, kind of. How on earth is lockdown treating you so far?
I think all right, to be fair, so far. I think we're doing not too bad.
Let's get on to the football, though, Wills. How much are you missing? Because you are one of the most committed football players I know. How much are you missing football right now?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I think it's just the routine of everything, because we're just so used to having the structure and the timings and everything in place all the time. And it's just when that gets taken away from you, it's really difficult. And obviously we spend a lot of time with each other, and it's obviously you spend pretty much the full week together. Then when we go away on away trips, it's the full weekend. So it's just such a strange time.
It's a really strange time, but I suppose the big question is, how do you maintain the fitness of it? And from what I've seen, Durham women have a rather unique way of maintaining fitness during this time, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been given what programs to be working on, and firstly we're using Strava to map and to track everything. So what you can do, you can log what you're doing, you can track your distances, add in notes and pictures and things like that. People have been getting pretty creative with the captions and stuff. So
I won't delve into that, don't worry.
No, it hasn't been too bad. So we've been using Strava, and then also we've been using Zoom to do strength and conditioning sessions as well.
Fantastic. And how have they been going down? Because there's a few characters in the team, isn't there?
There is, but it's been going really well. I mean, the first couple of sessions, it's a bit strange to get used to. So you just kind of set up in the living room or wherever, have your phone or tablet or anything set up ready to go. And we've had Tom on one side of it, Tom the S&C coach, and then all the players on the other side. And he's been taking me through the sessions, and it's been absolutely fantastic. It's been great to be part of, and obviously you can catch up with the team, and it's really encouraging to see how hard people are working.
It's the wonders of modern technology, isn't it? Absolute wonders of modern technology. And I know you've been injured, of course, for a good few months now as well. So I suppose this time period is even more important for you in terms of maintaining rehab. How easily have you managed to do that while you've been in lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. And I think one of the good things is that during this period, I've got time and I've got something to focus on. So every single day, it's making sure you get your rehab exercises done, you get out, you do everything you need to, because there's no excuse. It's not as if I haven't got any time to do it. And I obviously just want to make sure that when we do get the chance to come back, wherever that may be, that I'm is pretty much in the best possible position I can be at the time.
So just looking at the situation as a whole, then, how have the girls been with the situation? Obviously, it's completely unprecedented, is the word I think we continue using on the programme. It's such a strange situation. What's the girls' current view on whether the league should continue or whether the league should be cancelled necessarily in the Championship?
Well, to be fair, the first couple of weeks it was really strange for everyone. It was kind of like, oh well, we'll just see how it goes. No one, well, pretty much like everyone else, didn't really know where things were going or what was going to be happening. But I do feel like we've kind of adjusted to everything now, and hopefully it is like just for this short period. It doesn't go on for too much longer. It just goes on for however long it needs to in order to keep everyone safe. But from the girls' point of view, we just want to make sure that we're ready for when we get the go ahead. Obviously, we've been in really, really good communication with Lee and the rest of the staff. So as soon as there's any type of update, we've been updated. So we kind of just want to get back going, want to get up and running again and complete the season if that's physically possible and it's safe to do so.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the lower leagues, of course, the men's game, the women's game, both have seen leagues cancelled, have seen teams, be a little bit angered and disappointed by certain FA decisions. But the Championship and the Super League is still maintained. How would you see the season being completed where we stand right now in the middle of April?
To be honest, I don't really know. There's obviously a few different scenarios being passed around and different dates and looking at what can be fulfilled and when. But as long as it's safe to do so, that's when we can get things up and running again. But there's so many different things to think about. So as a player, you're kind of just thinking, I want to get in, I want to get the games done, I want to be at home in front of the fans again in Durham, and then just try and get everything back to normal. But there's other things we need to be thinking about, and at the end of the day, safety for everyone's the most important thing.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose it does make it a little bit more frustrating, the fact that you're relatively well placed in the Championship, in third, 6 points behind unbeaten Aston Villa. It's not an insurmountable lead, especially with Aston Villa still left to play you. Does that make it a little bit more frustrating, the fact that you were very well placed heading into the final few weeks of the season? It
does, and that's probably why we want to carry on and see what we can do, because you literally never know. Like, I know Aston Villa have obviously had a fantastic season, and like, fair play to them. They've clearly been working hard and have picked up some excellent results, but so have we, and we know that we can challenge them. So if we can come back and do it, then that's what we want to do. We've been working hard, and obviously the whole club's been working hard to get into the position that we're in. So it just seemed, well, it is very frustrating to not be able to do that. But then again, obviously, safety of everyone and players, staff, anyone who's coming to watch, that's the most important thing.
Of course, we've seen, sadly and very, very disappointingly, a lot of men's, a lot of women's teams struggling financially given this current situation that we find ourselves in. But Lee Sanders, the manager at Durham, put out a very, very strong statement, I thought, last week. He said, whenever the league starts, whether that be tomorrow or in 3 months, we'll be fine. I can guarantee that. How much is that testament to this progression, these solid foundations that have been built at Durham Women, not on the pitch necessarily, but off it over the last few years.
Well, for someone to come out and say a statement like that, it's just so reassuring, especially as a player, to know that whenever this is all finished and whenever things do kind of get back to normal, to know that we're going to have a club, because some teams are going to struggle, unfortunately, and it's kind of the nature of the game and what the clubs rely on and all the other different things. But that just shows like how much of like hard work and planning that does actually go in to have a little bit of a contingency plan for something like this that none of us seen coming. So to have that in place, it just shows the amount of time and effort that gets put into the club, not just by Lee. He does a huge job. There's a lot of people in and around the club that work extremely hard to make sure that that's all in place for every single one of us.
So that was the captain of Durham Women, Sarah Wilson. Sarah, thanks as ever for your time. And of course, best of luck to everyone involved with the club. We hope to see them back on the pitch very shortly indeed. One last little bit of business to round off the show. Well, I'm going to have to start calling it our new weekly feature. Our pundits putting together a team of the season from various years of the Premier League. Call it Football Matters' own take on Premier League years. Just sadly, no Georgie Thompson. You're going to have to make do amend with my voice instead. This week, you've voted, plenty of you. You've come up with 1997 to 1998. Now, Arsenal are double winners in the Premier League. Newcastle, Cup Winners' Cup. Barnsley, Bolton, Crystal Palace relegated. This is not a year that I chose. Obviously, it went to a poll. And it's not a year that a certain Darren Williams will not remember fondly in the slightest, of course. Darren, no fond memories of the end of that year in particular?
No, we 97, 98. We didn't. We got relegated 96, 97, didn't we?
Yeah.
So not fond memories at all, mate. To be quite honest, he even said it. But then I was like, well, I didn't even play then.
I like that. Put the blinkers up straight away.
He was happy for them to go down.
To be fair, we had a couple of years rest. We just thought we'd give someone else a chance.
Yeah, it was a difficult end at Wembley in '98 as well, wasn't it? A certain Clive Donk had his way.
And to the 97-98 season, but saying that though, I've always said that was the best thing that probably happened to us. As daft as it sounds, we didn't win the playoff final, but we learned so much from that season that we went on and obviously won the league with 105 points the year after, and dominated it. I think, to be fair, if we'd have won the playoff final and gone up that year in the Premier League, we'd have probably come straight back down. We had such a young side that was learned so much from that championship season that helped us massively the season after. So in all fairness, we were all disappointed and disheartened, but when you look back on it, it was probably the best thing.
In reality, thank you very much, Clive Mendonca, then, in that case, after one of the...
I'm not...
In the long term, not necessarily the short term. Well, I'll tell you what, Darren, we're not going to focus on that at all. That is the last we'll mention of that. Well, last I'll mention of it, certainly. I don't know about Ollie. But we'll focus on the Premier League. And we've stuck with 4-4-2. Ollie, have you gone 4-4-2 this week? Because you went 3-5-2 last week.
Just because you asked me to, but I like me 4-3-3. But I'm going to give you a 4-4-2 this week.
Give me a 4-4-2. Lovely stuff. I appreciate that, because you made it a nightmare for our producer who was putting together a graphic frantically last week. Let's go with the Premier League team then. Let's go with goalkeepers first. Ross, who's your goalkeeper?
David Seaman for me.
Top man. Lovely.
Safe hands, steady.
Same for me.
Same for Ollie. Seaman ×2. Darren?
Nigel Martin.
So Darren started off down the line of the PFA team of the year so far, because Martin was definitely in the PFA. It's okay, mate. My team's exactly the same as the PFA team of the year as well. So, defenders, guys. Ollie, let's start with you.
So the back four for me is Neville on the right, Erwin down the left.
Yes.
And, the two centre-back that won the league, Kieran, Adams. You can't get better.
Can't get better. Okay. Any advantage on
that, Darren? They won the league.
Leboeuf
could be in.
It was okay.
Legend. And he scored about 5 or 6 goals.
Yeah, he did that. Yeah, maybe.
I like a goal scoring centre back as well. Who else is in your defence, Darren, out of interest? It's what, sorry?
Neville.
Neville.
Neville right, Irwin on the left, Adams and LeBeuf.
Adams and LeBeuf. Ross, any advances?
I had Neville on the right. I had Nigel Winterburn on the left.
Okay.
Veteran. And then I went for another veteran in the centre defence. I went with Gary Pallister. Thought he had a solid season in a Man United team which conceded, I think, the least goals in the Premier League, but he was partnered with Ronnie Johnson and David May, and he kind of held that back four together, I thought. So I went with Gary Pallister.
Gary Pallister.
Just because he's held the team.
You are, Ollie?
Just because he held the team together.
He held the team together. He held that defence together.
That's
It helped.
Began.
While Arsenal mastered the back four, you're talking about helping out.
Every week, I always say I'm going to save about 20 minutes for this segment. The level of debate goes through, and every week we always push it right in at the end. And I wish there was longer for it. Okay, votes for the defence. Midfield, Darren, let's go with you. Who's in your four?
I went for Beckham.
Yeah.
Giggs.
Yeah.
Scholesy sitting in there, just playmaker.
Man U midfield. Yeah.
Matt Letizia just played a little bit advanced in front of Scholesy.
That's naughty, putting Letizia in a midfield role. But are we going with that? Are we all right with that?
No, forget that.
Slightly advanced, we'll go with.
To be fair, very close. Very close I am. So I went Beckham on the right, Giggs on the left.
Yeah.
Patrick Vieira and Paul Scholes.
I knew someone was going to go with Patrick Vieira one of these weeks.
I don't.
I'm going to put this feature at the start of next week's programme without a shadow of a doubt. It's much better.
Oh my God.
Ross, what are we going with midfield?
Right, my midfield, right-hand side, Steve McManaman. Had his best season for Liverpool, goal scoring. I saw him against Newcastle just after Christmas at St James's, and he scored. I think he scored twice in a 2-1 when he was unplayable. So McManaman on the right, Overmars on the left, just quick as anything.
Yeah, I thought so.
Helped transform Arsenal that season, and then staying on the Arsenal theme, the two Frenchmen in the centre mids of Vieira and Emmanuel Petit, who eventually scored a goal in the World Cup final that same year, if I remember correctly.
Yep, scored another header.
Very good.
For him, I think, back then. That's pretty decent midfield. Okay, forwards. Let's start with you, Darren. Who have you gone for up front? Obviously, I mean, you've got Letizia just behind them, so whoever these strikers are going to be superb.
little triangle, isn't it? It's a little triangle.
I love the tactics that are in here. It's great.
Bergkamp.
Yeah.
And Owen.
Bergkamp and Owen. I can't imagine there's going to be too much argument about that. Ollie, surely there's not going to be debate here, is there?
Of course.
Go on.
For me, Bergkamp and Anelka.
Anelka? Oh, yeah. Strong.
Come on.
He wasn't in the top 3 of scorers, though, that season. Dublin, goal, Owen.
He played Arsenal. Yeah, down the channel, overlapping, was doing everything.
Scored some absolutely hellish goals as well. I seem to remember from that.
Trust me.
His chin.
Well, it wouldn't be a team of the year without a slight amount of debate and a slight amount of controversy. So we'll go with that. Ross, can you settle it for us?
Bergkamp, Owen, easy.
I thought you'd go with that. I'm sorry.
Ross.
Ollie, I don't have any arguments with this. It's not me who picks it ultimately, but I can't imagine you're going to get Nicholas Anelka in there. I don't think.
Nah, to be fair, Owen had I didn't think about it, to be fair. Yeah, he had this season.
I think we need to give
World Cup as well.
Honourable shout-outs as well for a couple of names that I had down. Colin Hendry at Blackburn. Thought he had a tremendous season, low down leagues. Lasso. I thought David Beattie was great, very, very good that season.
Lasso.
But otherwise, I mean, it's very, very similar to that.
That was Battie's best season at Newcastle. He was superb that season. Got himself again in the England World Cup squad.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Ended in disaster when he missed the penalty, mind.
And you said,
shocking.
I thought we'd moved on from missed penalties anyway, Ross, but it's brought us nicely round again. But we'll have a look at that and we'll decide, and over the next 24 hours or so, I'm sure, that our producer Johnny will be putting that out on social media. So do keep an eye out. And of course, there will be a poll for next week. I'm sure whatever year comes out, there will be similar amounts of debate, similar amounts of controversy as well, especially with Ollie, just for the sake of it. I'm just waiting for 2001, 2002, etc., Ollie, where you don't put yourself in the thing. That'll be fabulous. But that pretty much just about does us, I think. Thank you to all of our guests for coming on the show. Chris Waugh, Kieran McGuire, Ken Beattie, and of course, Sarah Wilson as well. Gents, thank you as ever for giving up your time. Ross, Ollie, as ever. Darren, good to be back in some way, even though it was mostly Newcastle chat.
It was.
It's up.
Has to be. No, because when you talk Sunderland, it's fairly quick. You know, there's not that much to talk about. But Newcastle, especially at the minute, we've got a bit more to talk about, isn't it? Yeah.
On that bad comment, we will leave it. I doubt there'll be a takeover story with Newcastle every week from now, but you can never rule it out, can you? Let's be honest. Couple of final bits and pieces. Don't forget, Football Matters quiz should be with you back again on Thursday evening. I get the feeling that a certain Mr. Ross Gregory won the last one.
Yeah, there was some accusations of the Major Charles Ingram style cheating, but which I refuted completely.
Can't be.
I'll be looking to retain my title.
At least
I'm going to show up on Thursday then.
Plenty of coughing in the wings, I reckon. But at least it's topical with a certain ITV show on it. But yeah, that will be out on Thursday night. This episode will be on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Take your pick, whichever one you want to watch us on. But give us a watch, will you? Give us a share as well, because it is great to be back. Gents, again, thank you very, very much for your time. We'll see you all very shortly. For yourselves at home, stay safe, stay inside if you possibly can. Football matters. I say this every week, but our health matters even more. From me, Andy Sixsmith, from all of us here at Football Matters, see you in 7 days. Bye for now.